Welcome, Legionnaires, to the Long Live the Legion podcast, where we talk about the Legion of Superheroes comic book team and break subjects down so that whether you're just out of the Legion Academy or you're a longtime veteran, you get to know the team a little bit better. I am your co-host, Jim.
And I am your co-host, Jay.
And welcome to episode number 14. Jay, our mission monitor board is looking a little bit different today. What's going on?
Well, it's come alive and it's animated. So this week we are going to look at the animated series, The Legion of Superheroes, which came out in 2006. Lasted 2 seasons, but we're only going to talk about the first season. So we've got 13 episodes to talk about. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'd never watched this before, so this is all new for me. So can you tell me how you first discovered the series?
I'm trying to remember. I think I first saw this when it was being released, because this happened during one of my forays back into the comics world after the family started, and I saw that they were going to have this animated series. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch a lot of these as I needed to, just because of life, right? You know, Saturday mornings weren't very easy for me to kind of do this thing, because this was a Saturday morning type of show, or actually this was released on the Kids WB network, and I think it was on Saturdays. I can't remember, but it was airing at like a 10 a.m. time slot. You know, when you're a dad, you don't have much time to be able to do this, and I didn't have a DVR at the time, and so I never got to see this thing, at least on a regular basis. And then I guess a few years ago, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to buy this series, because I remember that what I saw I liked, so I figured, yeah, it'll be great. And so I bought it a few years ago. I ripped through the episodes, and then when we did this, I actually went and watched pretty much most of the entire thing of both seasons, actually, even though we're only talking about the first season, just because I was enjoying myself so much. It was just really, really cool. And yeah, so yeah, like you said, it started in 2006. So this would have been right in the middle of the publishing of the 3-boot Legion. So now that you started looking at it, so I just dying to know what your first impressions were.
First impressions, I didn't know what to expect going into this, because I've always found with DC animation that when it hits well, but then when it doesn't hit, they do things that'll probably irritate longtime fans. And so I was kind of looking at this going, okay, I know they're going to simplify this, and I know they're going to, I don't want to say dumb it down for kids, but like what is, especially as a person in their, I'm in my 50s, and I'm writing, you're watching a series that's written for like a 10-year-old. You're going, okay, is this still going to hit? And I got to be honest, I was really impressed by most of what I saw. There was a few things where I was like, okay, this is a throwaway episode, and it misses. But I thought for the huge task that they had, which was to try to do a series with a cast of, essentially 25 people, how do you make that work, and how do you bring it down, and how do you make it so it makes sense, and how do you bring the future alive? And I thought for the most part they succeeded on all sides. Again, we'll get into sort of the nitpicky things later, but I really enjoyed this. It was not a chore to watch this. I'm like, okay, next episode, cool, next episode.
Yeah, exactly. I had the same experience, and that's why I just kept on going. But let's set the table a little bit, right? So, in this particular, if you're listening to the podcast, you know who the Legion is. But what this cartoon does, so the official name is the Legion of Superheroes. I think it's actually officially Superman and the Legion of Superheroes. No, I'm sorry. It is actually Legion of Superheroes is the name of the series. But when you look at the logo, it very specifically has the Superman emblem on it. And in the first episode, kind of the setup of the series is you have Clark Kent, who is about to ship off to Metropolis to live his adult life. And this is when the Legion steps in to visit him, and he's just learning his powers. He doesn't really know how to use them. He doesn't know how to be Superman. So the conceit of this series is that the Legionnaires come back and get him and bring him back to the 31st century, but it's effectively a training exercise for Clark so that he learns how to actually use his powers before he goes back to his regular time and becomes the Superman we all know and love.
Exactly. And it was very interesting, that first episode, kind of that introduction. And the first thing that caught me was that it was Superman. They
Yep.
never used Superboy. And I tried to find out why they did that. And I kept getting like articles that basically disagreed with the previous article. So from what
Yeah.
I understand is it was either they weren't allowed to use Superboy, or they didn't want to use Superboy because they didn't want to confuse audiences. Which one sounds more correct to you, or what do you understand that to be?
I had the same experience as you trying to find this out. And for me, anytime I hear stories about the usage of the name Superboy, Superman, Supergirl, anything like that, I always default to there being it being some kind of a legal problem, right? Because I know that this has been an issue on and off for for almost the entire existence of these characters, right? Of who can use them, who owns the rights to them, all that crap. And so that I just assumed it was a legal thing. End of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's still Clark, right? In this role and doing what he's doing. So that didn't really. Yeah. Well, once I saw what you're talking about here, I was like, okay, it's probably some legal thing. I think this is around the same time the Brendan Routh Superman movie comes out too. So I honestly, I would have thought that would have been more confusing, right? But who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on that with the legal thing. I mean, there's a reason why at the beginning of every Superman comic it says, used under license of Siegel and Schuster, and the same with
Yeah.
Supergirl, and I'm assuming Superboy has the same fight. Which, I'll be honest, if the Siegel and Schuster family are still getting paid, awesome. So I don't have a problem with
Oh yeah,
this,
for sure.
and it didn't really take away, because at no point while I was watching the series did it really ever feel like they were teenagers. So using Superman didn't really throw me off at all. And I know they're supposed to be, but it was never that was never the focus of anything, or at least I didn't feel it was.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I was actually about to say, please disagree if you.
I felt like they were a little bit younger. I think than you kind of took, because especially Brainy, right? Brainiac 5 definitely looks like he's like a 15-year-old or 14-year-old, something like that. And
Right.
same thing for the little we get to see of Shrinking Violet. It's a similar thing, but by contrast, you have Lightning Lad who looks much older, right? So it's a bit of a mix. But I mean, at the end of the day, that didn't really matter too much to me. But one thing I think we should probably talk about are the characters that they focus on. So as you noted, right, the Legion's really big, but we don't. This particular series only focuses on a few core characters. So we mainly have Lightning Lad, Bouncing Boy, Triplicate Girl, Phantom Girl, Brainiac 5, and then in the second episode we get Timberwolf, and this, of course, in addition to Superman.
Yeah, and that was actually one thing that I would actually make that list even shorter. Like, to me, the focus was Superman, Lightning Lad, Saturn Girl, Bouncing Boy, and Phantom Girl. Because I remember, like, for the first 4 or 5 episodes, I was like, why is Triplicate Girl in the intro credits and we never see her? And then Timberwolf, same thing. Like, he appears, he gets his own episode, and then he just sort of disappears. So to me, it was like, we're going to focus on these 5 characters plus Superman, and see how it works. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about sort of how they redesigned them, or how they remade them. And I wanted to start with Bouncing Boy, because I think this might be the best presentation of Bouncing Boy since Jim Shooter originally wrote the Legion back in the 60s.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's funny that I was having similar thinking about this, because I think they pick who they pick. This is similar to the Legion Lost discussion, right? They pick who they pick because they feel like they're interesting characters to showcase. And I think in the matter of Bouncing Boy, he's really. I mean, Clark is kind of our cipher from a world perspective, right? He's the one who's new to this world, and so we're kind of seeing it through his eyes. But Chuck is very much more the like a regular dude, and so he, he comes across as funny and heroic, and but he has a little bit of a prickly side to him as well. So I mean, I really agree. I mean, it was very well rounded. Not to use that pun, but I did it. So
No
sorry.
pun intended. No, but I agree. Like I thought he was the best written. He was the best written character of any of them. And you're right. He was sort of the everyman. Like he was the person that we were supposed to relate to the most. I think there's a few times where I was like, okay, could he fail a little bit, or could they could they make him a little bit more normal? I mean, like, it just seemed like he was the person who was always saving the day, and but I will say this: if this was the my first introduction to the Legion, yeah, Bouncing Boy would be my favorite character.
Oh, absolutely. And it's little things too. Like he would just you know bounce around the hallways. like a basketball going around. So it's just a fun character to watch. I think Triplicate Girl. To your point about Triplicate Girl, I think the main reason that we didn't see too much of her or as much of her as as other characters, is because the voice actor is the same woman who does Saturn Girl. So that's Carrie Walgren, who is a
Yeah.
fantastic voiceover artist. I mean, she does all kinds of stuff. If you've played a video game or watched a cartoon in the last 20 years, you've heard her voice. In fact, she did the voice of Saturn Girl uh, and and Phantom Girl for the last season of Young Justice that was aired a couple of years ago. So she's very familiar with this particular character. But yeah, that's I think why we only saw a little bit of Triplicate Girl versus Imra. But and I think it's important to have Imra in that first season. Interestingly enough, as a little bit of a spoiler, we don't have as much Saturn Girl in season 2, but that's a whole other discussion.
Okay. Yeah, don't yeah, we won't get into that, so I won't have these episodes ruined. Yeah, and I thought it was I will say this, if that's true, I'd say that's kind of a bit of a loss. I thought she was one of the more interesting. I thought I really liked what they did with Saturn Girl. I did really like the redesign. Like I liked the her eyes glowing pink when she was using her powers, and I liked the costume kind of felt very reboot Legion,
Yeah,
which I thought you would like.
yeah.
I just thought it was a good look for the character. She had the Saturn earrings. It was a nice. I thought it was really well done, and yeah, the voice acting for her was top notch.
Well, that's a really good point that you made. This kind of the style of the show, right? When I was thinking about this and just rewatching the show, they did a really interesting kind of blend of style, well, at least with regards to the characters. So as they're drawn, right? So you have like the Saturn Girl outfit. I to me was more reminiscent of the three boot one that was going on at the time. But all the other ones were very much like Brainiac 5 and Phantom Girl and Lightning Lad. They were all represent more reboot oriented, I think. But then, of course, you have this other interesting aspect that Starboy, who's kind of a side character, like a lot of the rest of the Legionnaires, is effectively the three boot version, right? The one who's the African American one with the cape and the kind of the Starfield uniform. So, I think they were taking a lot of mix of the more recent character styles and kind of blending them together to put them for this particular version of the Legion. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because you had like like Giffen style block showing up in the background, and then
Yeah,
you had Sunboy, and I have no idea where they got the Sunboy design from. I was looking, I was like, that doesn't look like any of his, but cool.
I think it looks more
And
like
same
his
like
outfit. I think was more Silver Agey, but he had that weird the dark eyes and stuff, which I think was from. If you remember, right, it wasn't a great storyline, but at the end of the reboot, when they had that Elemental storyline, which wasn't that great, Dirk had that weird kind of look in his eyes too. So I think
right,
it
right,
was a
right.
blend.
Yeah. Whereas like Bouncing Boy, completely different. I mean, I
Yeah,
kind of like the way he looked in that. And then Triplicate Girl, um, I thought it was a really interesting redesign as well, in that they went three different colors completely, right? So you had orange and you had purple and you had white. And I like the fact that everything matched, right? From hair to lipstick to like, so there was no mystery of which triplicate, which one it was.
Right.
The only one that kept driving me nuts with her was she lost her right eye. And I like, because her hair is supposed to be hanging over
Oh,
her
right.
right
It was
eye. Like
hanging
it's a
over.
very,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm going to make a really, really old reference. It's this Veronica Lake look. But yet the way they drew her, you're like, well, no, the eye is supposed to be there. Like if her face proportions are correct, and it never was. So I was like, is she a Cyclops? Like, how are they doing this?
yeah.
And it
She's a
just
pirate.
always kind of like every time they did it, I was like, that just doesn't look right. But I did like the way they handled her in the limited time. And then with Timberwolf, it was very much like a 5 years later, that Al Gordon, Joe Phillips
Yeah,
miniseries. They
yeah,
really leaned into the animal nature of the character. And that was a good look. You could really tell that I think they sat there and thought, which Legionnaires can we pick that are most distinct, have a very distinct power set? Like you could tell they didn't want
yeah,
to just pick five super powered, like, so that's why like Alter Boy doesn't really, appears very little. They don't even talk about Mon-El. I think they wanted to have, I don't want to say like weaker is not the way I want to put it, but they wanted characters who had to use their brains more than their powers to kind of get through things.
yep, yep.
And I thought those were and visually were more interesting.
Yeah,
And I think that
exactly.
really
Yeah, I
worked.
think so. Yeah, because we do get some of these other Legionnaires. Yeah, we no, of note we get Cosmic Boy in a couple episodes, and showing off what he's doing, and he's voiced by Will Wheaton of all people.
Yep.
And we get towards the end we also get a Shrinking Violet appearance with, or she's also voiced by Carrie Walgren for a couple of lines. But these are characters that are kind of, I guess you could say that most of these characters are kind of one trick ponies, but they're not as, they don't really have as much depth, at least as far as the way these stories are being told.
Well, yeah, I think it was, and I mean, I didn't want to get into sort of the nitpicky thing, but I think that's the problem when they got to the end of the first season was they needed characters with sort of bigger powers or who they could get into these big battles, and they didn't have them and they hadn't really established them. So like you said, like Shrinking Violet shows up for this, no pun intended, tiny amount of time. And we haven't seen her before. We don't
Except in
really
the
know who
background.
she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she just sort of shows up and it's like, okay, here's this character. And I thought that was where they kind of got into trouble, was when they got to the final two episodes, which, spoiler if you haven't seen this, the Sun Eater returns and they've got to go break the Fatal Five out of Takran Galtos and stop the Sun Eater. And then suddenly we get the Legion at full power. And and then in comes Cosmic Boy, in comes Colossal Boy. We finally see Block and Tyrock and Sun Boy and Star Boy, and like, if you had watched this from the beginning and you didn't know who these characters were, you'd be kind of going, okay, wait, who's that? Like, what? Who's the rock guy? What? Like, why
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
can get small? And that was where I think they ran a little bit of trouble at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of cases, I think it depends. Some of those were bad choices. And some of them were fine. Like when Violet shows up, it's what she does is in her name, so that's fine. So it is, in a
Yep.
case like that, it's fine to do that. But to have like, but Block is another good example. It's like, okay, what do you do here? And hell, we even saw Tyrock in the background.
Yeah.
So you have weird things like that are like, okay, you have to be a Legion fan to really understand what you're seeing versus just experience. Versus experiencing what you see on the screen, from a story perspective.
Yeah, and I thought they could have done so much more with the first 9 episodes, or sorry, 11 episodes before they get to the Sun Eater story.
Yeah.
If they had just kind of flipped some people out, like if they had said, like instead of say having and I mean this as no criticism against any of the characters, like instead of having Bouncing Boy show up in one episode, you put in Element Lad. So when he shows up at the end and changes, like, and he uses his powers, and I'm watching this going, yeah, if you like, how would anybody know what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
If they had kind of rotated them a little bit more, so so it's all building to these final two episodes, but I think it's just simpler. You kind of go, here's our characters, and we're going to try to get toys out of this, and we're going to try to, make sure the kids understand. And then I think they wrote themselves into a corner a little bit. And it's, and again, for me, yep, I know who everybody is, but I would imagine if I was if I was 10 years old and I don't know the Legion at all, I'm like, who's the girl in the silver suit standing in the background who does nothing? Well, that's Dream
Right.
Girl,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
we've never seen her and she doesn't talk, and like, whereas I think like honestly with Block, like what more do you need to have him just show up and punch something and you're like, okay, I know exactly who this character is.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's
For
just
sure.
so straightforward, and you just needed that little moment or two.
Yep.
But I think that was the problem with, like, that's the problem when you're tackling a show where you've got so many characters. How do you, how do you balance them all?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think they were trying to do the whole thing where, here's our core focus because we have a limited voice actor cast, and so we have to control or scope the show around these particular characters, and then throw in a couple extra Legionnaires here and there as we need, and then in those cases, almost 9 times out of 10, the existing cast would double up. So I mentioned, Kerry Walgren. I have let's see, I have Imra, Vi, Triplicate Girl, Infectious Lass, and there's others that I missed that she did. Adam Wiley, who was Brainiac 5, also did Colossal Boy and Computo. Yuri Lowenthal is Superboy. He also did a lot of other like separate voices. Um, the Carrie Payton, who a lot of people might remember from, I think he's one of the Walking Dead shows. He does both Hunter and is it Tyr or Tyre? I can never remember how to pronounce that. Um, but yeah, so they're doubling up the characters a lot and just using their voice talents to make some kind of inflection change. Just because the show does have a limited budget, so what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. Like it's like you've got these talented people who are amazing at what they do, and I would have zero problem if they just said like, "Hey, you're already doing the voice Lightning Lad. You think you can do Element Lad? Just yeah, change your inflection or change whatever." I have no doubt that these people could handle it. I just thought it needed that. Sorry, you did mention, and we didn't mention her before, and I wanted to call out Phantom Girl, because I was going to say
Yes,
I thought she was the second best
I
character
agree.
on this for how they handled them.
I totally agree.
I look, as much as I love the Dave Cockrum Phantom Girl design from the '70s, it wouldn't have worked here. And I thought the fact that they used the apparition costume worked so well. I thought that they leaned into the ghost aspect so much, even so her face had this very ghostly appearance to it.
Yeah.
I thought she was just like she was a fully realized character, which I thought was brilliant. And the one thing I did really like about this is that they made her mom so much better than we've seen.
Thank you.
Uh, we've seen her used in so many different, like the fact that she's the annoying mom who's like, "Who are you dating?" and da 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 da. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. Like I'm cool with that, rather than just being a complete bitch. It's I'm worried about you. And then the episode where the magic, I always pronounce Xerox wrong because I just pronounce it like the copy machine, and I know that's not how
Yeah.
they said it on the show. Like, I didn't think it was a good episode, but her arc was great. And the fact that she and her mom are kind of talking about diplomacy and all of this throughout the episode, that to me was the best part of the show. I could have cared less about all the magic, like some spoiled kid magic user destroying Metropolis, but her going through everything, I thought that was beautifully done.
Yeah, no,
I really,
I completely agree that she was actually one of the most fun things about the show. Like, there's an early episode before we actually get to. I think this is the episode with the third one with the descendant of of Lex Luthor, the Alexa or whatever her name was,
Yeah.
um, when Tanya makes some kind of a comment of, uh, I know how to do the spoiled rich girl routine, pretty well, and then
Yeah.
we find out why, because she's the daughter of the president of the United Planets, and it's not something that's spelled out at the time, but you learn that, and you're like, oh, okay, there's actually some character development going on here. They've clearly thought about the relationships of these characters and their personalities, and and the world that's created them. And I think we see this with Lightning Lad as well later on.
I agree. Yeah, it was it's kind of funny because like I think that was my least favorite episode where they brought back where it was Lex's long lost descendant,
Yeah,
and I was just
Alexis
like, I
Luthor.
don't need to
Alexis,
see this.
that
Yeah,
was her.
Alexis Luthor, and I was like, I don't need to see this. Like this is just,
Yeah, that
but
was definitely one of the weak ones for sure.
yeah, but they did a great job. Like I say, like these little moments with the way the characters' relationships went, and you're right. Like there were great moments in here. I think almost every episode where you got to see like the whole Lightning Lad Saturn Girl, like is she going to support him? And then when Cosmic Boy shows up and tries to take over, and like and that sort of interpersonal problem, that was a nice touch. Like the when the storms hit Gwyneth, and Lightning Lad is obviously not impartial on what he's trying to save and why he's trying to save this one farm, and just this great sort of reveal. And I kept going like, when's his sister going to show up? Like, why haven't we seen Ayla yet?
Did you look on it? So I have the answer to that, but I don't know if you did any looking ahead on any of that stuff.
No, no, and I'd please, if there's something ahead, I don't want to know. But it was just nice
Yes.
that she's in the photo. So you're like,
Yes.
okay, she's in the family photo, and that's good. And I know,
Yep.
I mean, I know she's going to come up, and I know she's going to arrive later on. But yeah, like you can tell they really thought about the history of the Legion and the history of the characters, um, and toyed with it a little bit. I mean, there's the hint of Triplicate Girl and Bouncing Boy,
Yep.
and
Relationship there. Yeah. Yeah.
which I think has now. And is it now safe to say like that is the most sacred relationship in the Legion of Superheroes? Like that
I
those
think
two
it
will
is, because
all,
hardly anybody ever does touches it, right, at all.
and
And
nobody's
we
going to
didn't
break
even
it
get
apart.
the
Like
relationship between the Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad here don't even have a romantic relationship at all, right? It's just two of the founders, basically.
yeah, and I just that was one that kind of stood out. I was like, that's interesting. Like it seems like those two will always be together no matter what. We can't break that apart. So since we kind of sort of referenced like what was good and what was bad, I just wanted to ask, like for you, what do you think was the highest high of these 13 episodes?
Oh boy, I mean, I think I have to say that ultimately, I think the Sundown two-parter at the end is something that the whole series was building up to, and I think it was just really good because you get all these other pieces that are kind of coming together from earlier in the season. So you have the Fatal Five, for one thing. Then uh, you have Pharaoh Lad, who's introduced a couple episodes prior to this, and it kind of builds up, and it's very much it's very much inspired by the classic Silver Age story, and and you have a story. This is a kids show, mind you. You have a kids show where the one of these characters sacrifices themselves and doesn't come back, right? So I think that was kind of amazing that they did this for a a kids show on Saturday morning in 2006. To me, when we talk about what the absolute best is, it's that one. I have a couple other ones that I really liked here as well, but I think that the Sundown two-parter is the absolutely the high point of this particular season. How about you?
I
How do
agree.
you fare on
Yeah,
that?
I agree. I agree. I think it's amazing. It's 44 minutes, and it's probably not even 44 minutes of story, and they pack so much into those two episodes, and it just clips along like boom, 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 and everything makes sense. They set up why Ferrolad did what he did. Um, it's the establishment of Bouncing Boy as actually a really good leader of the Legion. the interpersonal relationships are all working. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So let's talk about your favorites
Okay.
of the season.
So for me, so I'm gonna go with, I didn't rank them in any particular order. I'm just kind of looking at the list of stuff that we have here. I'm gonna say so champions, which is uh the is this the first time we meet Mech in the show? I think it is.
It is.
So champions is where it's kind of like the Olympics, and Lightning Lad is one of the competitors, and that's where we meet Winema Wadzo, and so it's just a fun episode. We also, you have other little moments. You get to see Joe Na for the first time because he's not actually Ultra Boy yet in the show. So that one was a lot of fun. I really like Brain Drain for some reason. I just thought it was funny to have this weird take on a crazy brainy story. Uh, and then Lightning Storm was also, like you mentioned before, right? Oh, I'm sorry, not Lightning Storm. I'm thinking of Chain of Command, where that happens on Winath, where they're trying to fix the bad weather. So those are probably my favorites. So how about yours? Which ones did you like the best?
I'll pick the first one, and I did quite enjoy it. I thought it was a great setup, and the way they sort of put everything together and explained why he was there. I thought that was a really strong, we'll just say, pilot episode.
Hmm.
Um, Even though I always get caught with when the Legion's back in the 21st century and they haven't changed costumes or disguised themselves and they're just walking
Yeah,
around, I'm going, does nobody notice that there's a
I
problem?
know. I thought that same
Um,
thing. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
yeah, but I did quite enjoy. I enjoyed that whole bit. The one that always stood out to me, and it's maybe because it was just silly. I just liked the silliness aspect. Was the substitutes with the
Yeah,
tryouts, and you get the substitute heroes, and you get Starfinger, who they perfectly made as just the dumbest villain, and it was 22 minutes of just dumb, but it was dumb in a funny, like it kind of felt like it felt like they had read all the Keith Giffen stuff and just
yeah.
let's just go nuts with this. And I really
I
enjoyed
agree.
that. I mean, I
The
yeah,
substitutes was, that's on my honorary mention list because yeah, I mean it's a fun watch, and the subs themselves are just really funny, and goofy, and like you mentioned Starfinger, he's just perfectly and just so folks who are Legion aware are know what he looks like. If you haven't seen it, he's the version that is in the Baxter, the V3 Legion,
yeah.
visually, but he's just over the top goofy.
Yeah, and like there's a certain point actually where the substitutes call the Legion and say, "Hey, we need help. It's Starfinger." And I think it's Brainiac 5 who goes, "Yeah, he's not a real villain. We don't care. We're going to stay with our problem." And that just describes the like that's the episode. But then it's funny, like everything ends up tying together and connecting, and the subs do end up, saving the day, like helping. So it was great to see. And I always enjoy like the just the different takes on the characters where it's here's like Color Kid and you just see how useless he is, but it actually kind of works. And then the other one you mentioned as well, I really liked Chain of Command, the one where they're back in Wynneth, because it really felt like a Legion story. Like everybody's there, and I think they pulled in to Cosmic Boys back. Feral Lads joined. They pull in
Yep.
Colossal Boy as well, and I loved the hey CB1, hey CB2. I
Yeah.
thought that was this really nice touch, um, and it was just one you could tell like the person who wrote it understood the Legion and got how they sort of work together, and it was a great, just a great team story. And then with Bouncing Boy saving the day, and I like that, like he knows how to fix it, but nobody listens to him, and he's kind of scared to take charge. And then Triplicate Girl's in his ear going, no, 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 you got this. Like start demanding they respect you. And so many good messages in the episode. That was probably my favorite of the non Sun Eater ones. Yeah, like
Right.
so the
Right.
last three, it's just firing on all cylinders, which
Yeah.
was
No, for
great.
sure.
Uh,
Um, did
Now
you
the worst one is which episode didn't work for you, or which was the
oh,
one that
so
you're
the
like,
okay, so let me see. probably which Child's Play is probably the one that didn't work for me. 'Cause, like, except for the fact, like, and you mentioned this earlier when you talked about it, right? The Zix character was just really annoying, right? Although I, like you said, I did really enjoy Phantom Girl going there and kind of dealing with the bureaucracy and her interaction with her mom. Yeah, that was cool, but everything else I just I couldn't deal with. Although, did you see Mordrew in that? I saw Mordrew. Did you see Mordrew?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, good. I thought I was
yeah.
maybe going crazy, but
Well, they're not. They don't call him by name, but you're kind of
yeah,
like, oh, okay, I'm pretty sure that's Mordrew. So
yeah.
it's yeah, yeah.
Which one was your
For
worst?
me, it was Legacy. I just didn't need. I mean, an
Oh, the
entire
Alexis
episode about
Luthor
a
one. Yeah,
spoiled.
yeah,
Yeah, the one with the Alexis Luthor. I mean, I did like the fact that they never called her Luthor by name, except they wrote it out in interlac, so
yeah.
people like me could read it and go, "Ah, that's Luthor." Um, it's like why, why do we need this? Like, why tell this story? Why do you need a Luthor in this when there's so many other great villains? And then and me being the dummy that I am, I was like, oh, Alexis, never even clued in. I was just like, oh, it's a spoiled rich girl. And then when she lost her hair, I was like, oh God, no. And I just realized what they were doing. Because I mean, I always hate those like Superman has to decide between doing the right thing and hanging out with a horrible human being. Which will he choose? And you're like, it's Superman. He's gonna choose the do the right thing because like why why give this woman or this girl so much attention? Yeah, that was the one that just irritated me. Yeah, but again, like I'm not saying that I wasn't watching the whole episode going like, oh, okay, this is fun. It was just so
Yeah, yeah. No,
uh
I agree. I think that's is a very good way to categorize that. It's very, I don't know. It just felt like the writing team was just warming up and just trying to kind of figure out what they were trying to do. Is kind of how I took that
yeah,
one.
I got the sense that they were still thinking we're writing a Superman series. And so we've got to have this Superman stuff, and it
Right.
wasn't. And then as it got on, they were like, "Oh no, we have we have the Legion, we have all of this stuff to play with, and let's go with that." So
Although I did like the other one I do want to call out, which I think is which was kind of neat, was gosh, which one is it? No, Brain Drain I liked. That was a fun one. I think it's the Lightning Storm one. That's where we meet the Lightspeed Vanguard, right? Which is LSV,
yeah,
right? So that
yeah,
was kind of a funny little nod. And of course, the LSV being the LSV, they have all the villains, and it was good from the perspective of you had that Garth and Mech rivalry going on there, um, and it was neat to see the villains. But other than that, it was like the story was a little bit kind of ham-handed and trite to some degree.
true. And it kind of felt like the Champions episode kind of redone. Like, okay,
Yeah,
you've already seen Mech and Lightning and Garth kind of argue and fight, and let's see it again. But at least with the champion stuff, they had more stuff going on. Although, again, it's always nice seeing, like seeing these Legion villains or Legion characters show up in the animated force. So like Esperlass, I thought was done really well. I know they
yeah.
called her. It wasn't Spider Girl. They called her. What was her other
Wave, I
name?
think it was Wave.
Wave. Yeah. And like you say, and like it's always great to see Tyre or Tyr or however you want to pronounce it. So those were all like nice. It's fun to see those characters come alive, right? And I was happier when they did more of that. Like when it was focused, like the one with Phantoms, where he frees this guy we've never seen before, and these two evil creatures that we've never seen before.
Yeah,
I don't know. Had Drax appeared anywhere else in this?
I
Like I
don't
don't know.
think so. And then his pets, there's Comet and Cupid, were those weird something that
Yeah,
looked like something that came from Stranger Things or something like that. It was just very
yeah,
strange. It was a very
yeah,
odd episode.
yeah. And you're just like, I don't like. I'd rather see the characters we know.
Yeah,
And also, I'm sorry if you're going to turn on a Phantom Zone projector and there's not going to be any reference to Mon-El, I'm going to be disappointed. Um,
yeah. So, well,
so
the Mon-El story has to wait into a discussion of season 2.
there we go. So that's what I figured. But it's yeah, I
But
know.
I'm
Like
willing
I'm
to.
kind of this. I know this is going to happen, or I know this is going to go on. So I was going to say this. So first question: How many times did you pause the intro credits to try to figure out which symbols were there and figure out which Legionnaires were on this
Oh,
team?
I was doing it a lot, and not just for the opening credits, but also like during other scenes. Like I think the scene where Timberwolf gets sworn in. Then they do a kind of a pan around the bridge, and you have you see all the different other Legionnaires who are remote in the background. I thought I was pausing for those kind of things. I was pausing a lot in the later episodes when you have more of the Legion around. But yeah, it was crazy, and I'm sitting here playing it on my Xbox DVD player, and I had to use my Xbox controller to do it, and it's horrible. It's really
Yeah,
designed
that's
for
not
just,
fun.
throwing the video in and letting it play, not, hitting pause and restart and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, I was watching it on my iPad, so I could like, okay, and like move
yeah,
back and
that's the
forth
way to
and be
do
like,
it.
okay, that's
Yeah,
so.
I
So
don't have it digitally. I have the old DVD version
yeah,
that you can still get on Amazon. So
yep. I've seen it listed, and it's and I've bought enough old DVDs, and I accept the fact that I have this old tech that nobody under, I don't know, 35 owns, but I'm not giving it up. Yeah, so the problem was that it ended up with me being disappointed because I'm like, I know Shadowlass is on this team because there's her symbol, and can we see her? And
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and I'm pretty sure, and I think I spotted Chemical King as well, and I was like, can we have him show up? Because that would be hilarious. Yeah, I just thought it was, and I think that's got to be the tough one if you're creating this series, is you just have too many toys to play with, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yep.
have to
Yep.
decide what you're going to do. It's kind of like, like the end of that Supergirl and the Legion movie when all the Legionnaires show up, and it's like the movie has like six of them, and then then the actual team shows up, and you go, oh, you had like 40 that you could have done something with. Why did we have like why did we
And why
only
didn't
have
we have any of
three?
these
Like,
other ones? Yeah. Why is
yeah,
it
yeah. Why did we leave
monstrous
it?
on our on our
Yeah,
screen doing something?
yeah, exactly. So it was good. So I was just going to say, like, funny things I was thinking as I was watching the series. So one, there's a lot of property damage in this series. Like they just
Yeah.
destroy everything, and I was like, I kept laughing. Like, so they've destroyed the whole headquarters as well. Um, oh, speaking of which, what did you think of the redesign for the headquarters and the ship? And
Oh, I thought it was cool. I mean, it was all obviously gonna, they were trying to set their own particular style, or just like they did with the characters. They were doing the same thing for the world itself, right? The backgrounds, the ships, and all that stuff. And I was good with it. I liked it. I think it was neat. It was a different look of for the cruiser, especially. That was kind of interesting, but I liked it.
yeah, I agree. I thought it was nice to just say we're not going to do anything that we've seen before, but we're still going to keep the same idea of the upside down rocket ship as
Yeah.
the headquarters. And
Yep.
and I did really like the ships because they just said we're not going to do, we're not going to do a Star Trek influence. We're not going to do this. We're just going to have some fun with it. And I thought it was really nice. So I wanted to say there was one other big comment I wanted to make, but I wanted to see if there's anything else you wanted to hit before we got to this.
No, I think we've hit a lot of the stuff. I'm just mainly curious to how you took it. I obviously loved it. I mean, one thing I would like to mention is the fact that you mentioned the recent Legion of Superheroes animated movie that came out a year or two ago. That's basically a Supergirl movie. I got to say that of all the different animations that I've seen of the Legion, and I've seen a lot of them, this one here that we're talking about here, this series, is the one I like to rewatch the most. In fact, I don't think I've rewatched the. I think I might have rewatched the Supergirl and the Legion one once, maybe just to get some, to look for some images or characters and things like that. But all the rest of them, I haven't really watched Young Justice over again. I haven't watched there's a Fatal Five movie, a Justice League Fatal Five movie that has a lot of Legionnaires in it. Haven't watched that one again. And granted, I own this one, but I also own a lot of the other ones. But this series, I really, really enjoy rewatching just because it's obvious that the folks making this really cared about the Legion itself.
Yeah, I I agree. So I haven't seen most of these, and I just go with the like with the Supergirl and the Legion movie. I rented it and never regretted not buying it because I think the only way I will rewatch it is if it's a future episode for this podcast. But I bought this series and I don't regret buying it. I can see myself going back and just turning, like, hey, I'm just gonna watch a few.
Yep, and in fact, and I'll tell you what, I was watching, like I said, I kept on going into season two. It was partially because how the DVDs were set up, or how the episodes were set up on the DVDs. But I have a different season two is a different animal, but it's still there's still really cool parts of it, and I just really love this show. It's just fun and rewatchable, and if you're a Legion fan, it's something you got to have.
I agree. I agree. So there was, I said one point, but there's actually two kind of points that I wanted to make before we wrap
Okay.
up. And the first one, because we haven't really talked about him, and I just wanted to call out, this might be my favorite version of Brainiac 5 since Levitz was writing like way back the Baxter series.
Okay.
I really liked what they did. I liked I liked that they made him sort of part robot, and I thought that it was so different and distinct. But I liked the fact that he was still super smart and he was still above everybody else, and he was still doing things that kind of irritated everybody. But he was also like nice. And
Yeah.
and I think there's like, I mean, it's partially because I'm just finishing up Three Boot, and all I think is like, okay, so in Three Boot, he's psychotic and probably a villain. In Reboot, he was just an ass. And when you find out the writers were like, yeah, it was great because we love just knocking him on a peg every so often. And I was like, yeah, except he never learned. Like he never got better. He just kept
Yeah.
being a jerk until DNA took over, and then they softened him a little bit. I I, I really kind of dug what they did, and I liked the way they changed like all of the changes they made to him so he could plug his fingers into the computers and make it work. I really dug that. I thought it was a really great option for him.
How about, did you like when he was? What did you think about the episode when he went a little bit crazy?
But again, like it's that funny, like when you take the smartest character and you make them stupid, or like I always love those because then everybody else has to think, so you can't just rely on this person to solve the problems. And I think the actor probably had some fun with that as well because he's just throwing non sequiturs to the wind, and he's like, oh, and I
Yeah.
was like, that was funny. Like I mean, again, it's one of those episodes where I wasn't going like, wow, this is brilliant. It was just okay, this is a funny episode where
It's fun.
we're just showing these
It's fun.
characters. Yeah. Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's
It's a lot
all
like,
you want sometimes.
yeah, it's a lot like the Superman movie, right? Just
Yep.
fun.
Yeah, and that was good. The last thing I
You said
wanted to make, and
you
then
had two
we'll
things. You
move
had
on.
two things that you
Yeah.
wanted to say.
So the other one was I tried to figure out how many people were watching this show when it was broadcast, and unfortunately, like only have Nielsen ratings, which I think Nielsen purposefully makes these as obtuse and hard to understand as possible. And so you're reading this, and so like for example, like the very first episode, it got a 2.0, and it's like K6 to 11 rating. They got a 2.0 rating and an 8 share. And so my simple brain tried to figure that out, and it's basically like of all the houses that have people who are ages 6 to 11 years old, what was it, like 2% of them all watched this episode when it first aired, the first episode, and 8% of all of the households that had their TV on were watching this. So it's not actually a number. So I can't say like 2 million people watch this, or
I think you broke my
whatever it is.
brain by whatever you just said there.
Yeah.
I did
Oh,
not.
oh no,
I
no.
don't
And
understand.
like I'm reading this going, this doesn't make sense. Like, wow. But let's just say for argument's sake that there are 50 million households in the United States that have people ages 6 to 11. And I mean, would you say that's high, low? Like, where would you put that?
Oh, I don't even know. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just say 50 million. So 2% of that, right, still means that you have more people who watch this show than have ever read the comic.
Right. Right.
Like that's kind of where I wanted to get to this. So like the influence of this show on Legion fans, on how people understand the Legion, is far greater than any comic book that we will ever talk about. And I'm including Silver Age. Like, one of these episodes, even the lowest rated episode, had more eyeballs on it than even the most popular Silver Age when they were selling, like 300,000 copies or whatever. So if I'm DC, is this not where I start when I'm talking about a reboot?
One would think, and they actually did a comic book tie-in to the show. It didn't. The comic book did not release until the following year in 2007. But they did, and they had it was I guess 10 or 12 issues, something like that.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, the people who are buying the comics probably aren't going to buy the comic book tie-ins, right? It's one of those where you're hoping you're going to reach the 8-year-olds who are watching it at home. But then why are you selling it in a comic book shop? But anyways, But I was thinking, I was sitting there going, like if I'm DC, so when this show is on in 2006, 2007, like, let's just say for argument's sake, the kid who's watching it was born in 1999 or 1998. So they're now 26, 27. So their only knowledge of the Legion is this. So why would you not, like, for example, like, okay, Garth is now going to have a lightning scar over his eye. Like, let's just make that canon because that's what they're going to recognize. And Bouncing Boy, we're going to elevate him because, again, like, if I grew up with this, he's the character that I remember the most. Like to me, that would be the conversation that I'd be having. Like, how do we do this? Triplicate Girl, this is how Triplicate Girl is going to look moving on. Right? Like, we're just going to embrace this design, because that's what people will recognize, because that's what they've seen. And I think that's fascinating about that. The other sad part is I found out they tried to get a toy line for this, and I think it was Mattel said no. I was like, no, this would be so.
Well,
cool.
there were some McDonald's toys. They did a Happy Meal the next year.
Yeah.
For that tied the Legion in here. So, yeah, I think they had like six figures or something like that you could do.
Yeah, they had a mini Validus, I think, which was
a mini Validus. So I went and went to some of our research research tools that I have at my disposal here. So a 2.0 rating would mean so a 1 rating point equals about 1.2 million people in a particular demographic. And so a 2.0 rating would be 2.5 million viewers, basically.
But is that for, like, but it's a 2.0 rating only for households that have a kid age 6 to 11 in it?
For a specific demographic, yeah.
So yeah, like, that's where my brain breaks. That's where my brain breaks talking about this. And I'm like, so what does that mean? Like, how many people have these kids? But let's just say your number is exactly right. They had 2.4 million people watching the first episode. Again, that is the biggest audience the Legion has ever had.
Yeah, so
even half that.
Yeah, so doing another little search here. So for kids age 2 to 11, at one point would be about anywhere between 750 and 800,000, 750,000 to 800,000 viewers. So 2.0 would be 1.5, 1.6 million kids.
Yeah, there we go. Like, so that's how key this is. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are Legion fans now because of this show. And if I will say this, if you're listening to this podcast and you got into the Legion because of the show, first of all, I understand why. Like, it was a kick to watch it. And second of all, come over to the comics and we'll get you up to date on all of that.
Absolutely.
The other sad part of this is I found out that they weren't, like, the ratings weren't great, but that's not why it was canceled. It was canceled because the Kids WB sold the time slot. Does that sound right?
Well, no, they sold I guess they sold their reason for being. They basically stopped doing things. They canceled the network is how I understand it.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, because they had a third season ready to go. They were prepping the third season, which is kind of sucks because it would be great to have seen what they were thinking to do. But it is what it is. It's history as it is.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'd love to see them try this again. Like do another, now that they've rebooted the whole, DCU, let's give another crack at this, because I think the Legion works really well in animation. Like I think
It does.
it's a great
It
place
does.
to put it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So
so I'll just say this before we move on, because I know we got a mailbag to get into. Please let us know what you think of this series. Like this is one where I'm really fascinated to get some feedback on this, especially if you grew up watching this. Like if you were a kid when this was on, I would love to know your take on this, because um, I think this show would hit so different if you're 10, obviously, than if you're like my age and 50 something. I'd love to know your take on this. I think this is a great entry level.
yep, yep. And I just to cross the T here and dot the I. So just look this up. The show was canceled because the 4Kids Entertainment Network was taking over for the Kids WB that the Legion of Superheroes was part of. So basically, all the Kids WB stuff got kind of tossed. So that's what happened there. And
Well, not cool, but thank you for
not cool.
clarifying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
either way, not cool. The other thing that I kind of, I mean, it's a season that never happened, so I guess it's not a spoiler, and I'll tell you. But the third season, I hate to tell you this, but they were going to introduce Wildfire. So sorry.
But of course, that's how it always works. He doesn't get introduced in any new reboots until it's either about to get canceled or and I just have to sit there and grimace and
Uh,
go, am I the only one? And I'm getting the feeling I am. I get the sense I'm the only one who cares about this character anymore.
yeah.
So
Well,
I will
here's an
just take
interesting
this.
line. This is from the Wikipedia, and this fascinates me, and on one hand, it also makes me super frustrated. It says the third season would have taken place 3 years after the end of the second season, and it would have introduced Censor, Magnetic Kid, Supergirl, Hellas, Princess Projectra, and Shadow Lass, while expanding the roles of Block, Wildfire, and Dawnstar.
Yes, why can't we have that?
What I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by is the fact that you have Censor and Princess Projectra in the same sentence. Although it is a Wikipedia entry. Who knows? There could be riddled with errors here, but it is kind of fascinating to see that. So.
Yeah, it's and you kind of go like, do you know, like, do you
Yeah,
understand it's the
yeah,
same? But yeah, it was. And again, like, I would think if you're writing on this series, like you could just do whatever you wanted. You could have so much fun with it. So uh, have them as two different characters, have a different censor. So all right,
absolutely.
let's move on to our mailbag. And what have we got? Well, let's start with the email. What interesting emails did we get this since the
So
last
we've
episode?
gotten a bunch of views. First of all, I mean, from both of us, thank you guys for writing in. This is, I mean, between the comments that we're getting on Blue Sky and comments on directly on the podcast site and just sending us emails. I mean, thank you guys. I mean, the fact that you care about the Legion is just really awesome to see, and we love hearing from you. We love hearing your questions and your comments, because you guys always have something interesting to say. So let's start with Steve Shen. He's been kind of catching up on the podcast. So he did a speed run of episodes 7, 8, and 9. Um, and so he had a couple topic suggestions. So we're thinking about Legionnaires that we feel would need more character depth. That's a good idea. And I think one of the things that we're going to do, eventually we're going to get to every Legionnaire and get into a deep dive on some of these. So I think we're going to answer the mail on that one. Um, and then when he goes to episode 8 about the Cosmic Boy miniseries, he says, surprised that the Secrets of the Legion mini didn't pop to mind as far as a storyline to talk about. And I think that's a really good idea, because it's actually this was happening around the same time as we recall, when we were talking about the Cosmic Boy miniseries. And I think it's a really good series to tackle at some point. I think we should add this to the list.
The Secrets of the Legion, the one that came out during the Reflecto saga, or right before it. That's what we're
That's right.
talking
That's
about.
when it came out. I was confusing that with the Cosmic Boy one, but yes.
So I think it's an interesting thing to talk about because we're getting everybody's origin stories, but it's not really a great story. Like it's just RJ Brand's sick. Let's stand around and talk. Like so it was a great like 3 issues of here's who everybody is, here's where they're coming from, like here's all this background. And so it was great especially I remember as a little kid getting into the Legion, reading that. I was like the Bible of, oh, now I get who these people are. But as far as a story goes, it's pretty light.
Yeah, it is, but I
I think
think
it'd
it's
be, yeah,
a subject worth talking about as an episode.
I think you're right. I
When
think, and it would be fun to talk about it. And anytime I get to I can compliment Jimmy Jane's art, I will take that opportunity. So
Very good. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And then his last comment about episode 9, which is the Legends in Intertron. I can never say that word. Oh my gosh. Was so he says uh, a topic that popped up for me in our discussion was great comics artists and writers who excel in their lanes but don't gel with the Legion. So Steve Ditko, Roger Stern, Jim Starlin, Pat Broderick. And he actually has a really good comment here. It would have been a fascinating experiment to see what Chris Claremont would have done with the Legion.
that would have been, yeah, that would have been a very interesting Legion to see. I mean, and I've talked about this to you before, and this is more like inside, like the behind the scenes. We've talked about doing an episode where we talk about who we would have liked to have seen tackle the Legion historically, who never took a shot. And Claremont's one of those people I think we could talk a lot about.
Yeah, and I'm not as versed on the Claremont stuff on the X-Men, so I need to do a little bit of homework and read some back issues before we had that discussion. But I think that'd be an interesting discussion regardless.
Yeah.
All right, so now we have so Ben Fritz writes us, and he says, I disagree with one position you took in the Lightning Lad episode, which is why I'm writing. So I should caveat that he started reading the Legion with 5 years later. I obviously can't talk either, so he'll be favorable towards that run because it made him a fan. That said, I really do think the Beer Bombs love the Legion and deeply respect its history, and they often succeeded in merging that with Keith Giffen's manic creativity. And I will say that I don't think there's no question that the Beer Bombs are huge fans and love the Legion. I think our comments are more coming from the perspective of should they have made those particular creative choices. But anyway, to the main point here. I think the reveal that Garth was actually Prody since he returned from the dead is a great example. For one thing, it helps explain why at least one of the Legionnaires was kind of a jerk in the early Adventure series. And they all were, because Silver Age comics were full of people playing mean tricks on each other. Garth was really a hothead and Prody was not. Another reason I like it is that comic book superheroes return from the dead way too often. The Legion has never otherwise used that trope for one of its main characters that I can recall, and I appreciated that with this change. Dead has always meant dead for the Legion. Yeah, and I think that's true for the most part. We did see in the reboot Legion, right? We did see Garth come back, and we'll get into that whole story, and as well as some other things in an upcoming episode with regards to Garth. But what do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, they brought Mon-El back to life doing the exact same thing they did with Lightning Lad, and they referenced it in 5 years later because I think it's his cousin Eltrogand.
Eltro, yeah.
It was the exact same thing. Lightning strike brought him back. So there was that. I just think so. Here's the thing: Lightning Lad being revealed as Prody, I think actually hurts Saturn Girl's character more than it hurts Lightning Lad's character, if that makes any sense. And I think it was one of those choices where, like, if you're going to talk about Silver Age Legionnaires who are jerks, I'm sorry, Brainiac 5's the worst. It's not even close. He is openly sexist and dismissive of Saturn Girl from point one. And so if you had said we're going to make Brainiac 5 a jerk, and so that actually I can defend more, because if you just take that Silver Age character, he's horrible. I still, whenever I read the Silver Age, I don't get where all the Lightning Lad hatred comes from. Like, he's no worse than anybody else, and in fact, like I just say, you could pick worse characters. I just think it was one of those where the writers wanted to do something either shocking or surprising, or it was something that they thought was cool when they were 13 years old reading the book, and they just brought it to life without thinking about all of the other repercussions. And I think if you're going to do something that big, especially to, like such a character, I think you have to really think it through.
Yeah,
And it just doesn't work for me.
This was some of the stuff that was, I guess, bandied about in the Interlac newsletter and
Yeah.
email list, or however you want to refer to it. So our last email that we're going to cover is from Lorenzo Valdez. And so, Jay, you had mentioned, hey, who of our listeners have, how did they come, if they came on board with the Legion, did they use this this animated show as this? And Lorenzo is one of these folks. So he writes in, he says, I just started listening to the Long Live the Legion podcast after hearing about it on the Men of Steel podcast. It's forging fantastic. Well, thank you, Lorenzo. I'm bummed I didn't know about your podcast sooner, but the timing is actually apt for a couple of reasons. I was delighted to hear that your next episode will be focused on the first season of the Legion animated series, as I was born in 1998, and that show was actually my first introduction to the Legion. I loved watching it as a kid during its far too brief run, and I later finally rewatched it again from start to finish several years ago when I was in college. Hot take, and my super friend Michael Bailey from the Superman homepage, From Crisis to Crisis, and It All Comes Back to Superman, even, I guess those are podcasts, even actually bestowed me with the superhero name Hot Take because of how many I have. The Legion of Superheroes is the superior. Let me see if I'm reading this right. The Legion of Superheroes is the superior of James Tucker's two DC animated series as a showrunner, the other being Batman Brave and the Bold. I didn't realize that. Brave and the Bold is another animated show where they really cared about the characters they were handling. So I think that shows. That seems like it's a good through line. So he also has another question. Do you guys have plans to do an episode on Smallville's Legion episode written by Jeff Johns? I'm a gigantic Smallville fan, so I hope the answer is yes. You could even incorporate discussion of the use of Brainiac 5 2 seasons later in Season 10's Homecoming, and the further adventures of that iteration of the Legion that we got later in the Smallville Season 11 comics. How Smallville handled Brainiac 5 is super fascinating.
So to be honest, we don't have any plans right now, but if it's one thing that we've learned running this is that our plans, so again, more behind the scenes stuff. We actually planned out a large number of episodes. So we're actually set for, I think, a year. Because there's so much stuff to talk about, but we've already thrown these plans to the wind numerous times. I mean, this episode is a perfect example. I'd have zero problem going back. I think I'd be fascinated because I didn't watch. I haven't seen any of the Smallville episodes that you're talking about. I'd be more than interested to taking a crack at that. We'll just have to figure out when we can fit it into the schedule. And I love the fact that I think Smallville is on Prime, so I don't have to buy anything to watch it. So that's great.
That was going to be my comment of, can we actually access it? so if it's on Prime, then we should be good to go. Yeah,
and I always want to support the shows that are
as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say it's. I always like to support the shows that were filmed in my hometown or in where I live now, and all this stuff. Right. I live in Vancouver, BC, and all of this stuff was filmed there, so it's an extra treat for me to go. I know that place. Same. Nice. I mean, we've thrown the idea around about like the Mon-El episodes in Supergirl, and I know a few Legionnaires show up in that as well. So there are a few. There are a few other in different media, a few other appearances of the Legion. So I think we're going to get to all of those. I just don't know when.
Yeah, I'd be game for the Smallville one too, because it's been a long time since I watched it. I wasn't a regular Smallville watcher at the time, but I did tune in for that episode, and I remember liking it. But I'd love to be able to see it again. I'm not as up on not as keen as the Supergirl Legion episodes, just because I don't want to make this longer than it already is. But there's a lot of reasons that I didn't like it as much. Okay, so his last question, just to sum it up, he says, I'm also writing to ask if you could please hook me up with an invitation to the Legion fan club on Discord. So, yes. And so I have actually reached out and I sent Lorenzo the Discord invite, and he's just joined up. And If you would like to do the same thing, you can email us just like Lorenzo did here at long live the legion 2025 at gmail.com, or you can connect to us on Blue Sky at longlivethelegion.bsky.social.
Speaking of Blue Sky, was there anything we wanted to reference from Blue Sky, or is it if you're not following us on Blue Sky, just follow us, and then you can track all these comments there. So
Yeah, we're getting a lot of really good comments from folks.
yeah,
Chris on Infinite Earth has been catching up on the podcast episodes. We have Tim Ash was uh, talking about how we should do some more bad or not as good storylines. Eric from Longbox Review. If oh, by the way, if y'all are Legion fans and you're not subscribing to the Longbox Review podcast, go and do that right now because it's an awesome podcast. And he does this one with Peter Rios where they go really deep into the Baxter run on each episode, each issue. It's just a fantastic listen. So definitely do that. He's been enjoying the discussion that we had about the Mount Rushmore episode, and I think he's going to be listening to the Reflecto episodes too, and I really can't wait to hear what he says about that. And so then Barry Liga, actually, he just commented something, and this is something that you mentioned when we were talking about Jim Shooter. If you read Jim Shooter's blog and read between the lines, it seems to me that 50 was basically Jim's script mangled and rewritten heavily by the editor. I don't think that there was a third party involved. I think that's actually probably the closest to the truth that we're going to get.
yeah. I know there's one comment on Jim Shooter's blog where he says Tony Bedard was kind of the Legion editor's first person to call if he needed something done, but he can't confirm that for sure. And to be honest, after reading 50, Bedard's a much better writer than what actually gets on the
Yeah.
page. So I would never tar Tony Bedard with that brush because it's horrible. I don't think anybody's ever going to admit to writing Legion 50, and I know I wouldn't if I had written it. I would just be yeah. I would keep that a secret to my grave. And one thing I was going to say, one of the best parts about being on Blue Sky gave us the best tagline we could possibly have, which is "Long live the Legion podcast, the best podcast to wash dishes to." So I love that. That was my favorite comment. I love that one. Okay. So yeah, you had asked before, where can people find me? And so I'll call that up. So every week I write an article about where I'm rereading Legion episode or rereading Legion comics, and I do these big long, probably way too long reviews, but I love writing them. You can find them at jmlonglivethelegion.blogspot.com. You can find me on Blue Sky at jmckernan.bsky.social. You can find me on Reddit as Drake Burrows. You can find me on Discord as Drake Burrows. And I am a member of the Legion fan club there. I'm a lot quieter than I want to be, but I just find everybody's saying so many good things and I don't have anything to add because the ideas are so great over and over that I just kind of go, "Yep, I agree," and then I just walk away because I don't have anything to add. So I have to change that. So if there's more people there, I'm gonna find my voice and get a little more involved on Discord. Jim, where can everybody find you?
All right, well, I have my Legion Reviews website at jimboslegion.blogspot.com where I try to post one new comic a week that's somehow Legion related. I've been going through a dry spell, and today I just published my review for the new Superman number 28. It's the first issue of the Legion of Darkseid storyline in Superman. So this is the evil Darkseid controlled Legion that we have seen in the DC universe for the last year. So that's out there now. So I'm getting back on the schedule. You can find me personally on Blue Sky at jimbofett.bsky.social, on Reddit at jimbofett87, and on Discord as jimbofett on the Legion Fan Club Discord, where you can also request access by hitting us up on Blue Sky or sending us an email at longlivethelegion2025@gmail.com. I think that wraps it up for today.
That does. So what is our next episode? What can everybody expect to see in a couple of weeks.
Well, next week or next episode, we're going to be talking about the Computo attacks storyline from the Silver Age. So, if you want to do some pre-homework, you can go back and read some of those stories.
Yeah. So it's we're about to switch our focus to Triplicate Girl. So for anybody who's a big Triplicate Girl fan, the next couple of episodes are going to be awesome for you. Otherwise, that's it for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thanks again for everybody who emails or sends us messages. We can't say strongly, or we can't say enough how much we appreciate this and how great it is to see. So until next episode, long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion! Long live the Legion!
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun. Whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, aka Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.